Perhaps the most important bit of news in the homeland is that of the conflict between Texas and the federal government. This is a prime example of the brilliance of the founders that each state would operate autonomously within the United States. It's an instance of federalism at its finest, but we have to go back a few weeks ago to an open letter sent to Congress by two retired intelligence officials, Kevin Brock and Chris Swecker. I'm going to read some of this for context. They said, "As former senior executives of the Federal Bureau of Investigation with deep experience combating dangers to the nation, we write to express our concern about a current specific threat that may be one of the most pernicious ever to menace the United States. The threat we call out today is new and unfamiliar. In its modern history, the U.S. has never suffered an invasion of the homeland, and yet one is unfolding right now. Military-aged men from across the globe, many from countries or regions not friendly to the United States, are landing in waves on our soil by the thousands, not by splashing ashore from a ship or parachuting from a plane, but rather by foot across a border that has been accurately advertised around the world as largely unprotected with ready access granted. It would be difficult to overstate the danger represented by the presence inside our borders of what is comparatively a multi-division army of young single adult males from hostile nations and regions whose background, intent, or allegiance is completely unknown. In light of such a daunting, unprecedented penetration by uninvited foreign actors, it is reasonable to assert that the country possesses dramatically diminished national security at this time. The nation's military and laws and other natural protective barriers that have provided traditional security in the past have been thoroughly circumvented over the past 3 years. In other words, what they're describing is a massive national security issue, and they further clarify their reasoning. In 2021, the demographics of those crossing the porous southern boundary started to shift. Young men from around the world traveling alone and holding questionable motivations dramatically increased in number to become the most common profile of those breaching the nation's borders. A startling number have been found on the terror watch list or are from countries designated as state sponsors of terror distinctly unfriendly to the United States. And yet, this very real concern does not seem to be getting the focus it logically deserves. The director of the FBI has correctly assessed an elevated threat level since October 7th. So as we'll talk more about later, the described threat level has risen since the Hamas attacks on Israel in October. The United States is practically viewed as synonymous with the state of Israel, and just as the Islamic Republic of Iran supported and funded and helped orchestrate those attacks, they may do the same through an infiltration of our southern border. Additionally, they're not just from terror-linked regions, but from China and Russia as well, hostile adversaries of the U.S. with aspirations to devastate national infrastructure. Now, what evidence do they have for such claims? I'm not sure. Their point is that our known enemies throughout the world are evidently entering the U.S. without resistance, or at least they're attempting to do so. They say, for these reasons, elements of this recent surge are likely no accident or coincidence. These men are potential operators in what appears to be an accelerated and strategic penetration, a soft invasion designed to gain internal access to a country that cannot be invaded militarily in order to inflict catastrophic damage if and when enemies deem it necessary. This now raises the question as to what they propose to do against this threat. They said, the borders need to be secured against these young men, and those already here illegally must be identified and removed without delay. This will take the coordinated, cooperative efforts of the FBI, Department of Homeland Security, and the rest of the intelligence community to achieve. Then they closed their letter writing the following. Until it is stopped, the United States is extraordinarily less safe and secure. Knowing all of this, it would be a shameful travesty if some terrible attack, a preventable attack, were to occur against innocent Americans or the infrastructure that keeps the nation safe and functioning. The government will have failed grievously in its duty to protect. And all of this goes without mentioning the other numerous problems with the ignorance of the legal immigration process and our sovereign southern boundary. Human trafficking, drug trafficking, exploitation of the citizenry, etc. This is the very reason why Republicans and even some Democrats are seeking to impeach the Secretary of Homeland Security, Alejandro Mayorkas, though I don't think that doing so is going to inflict any serious changes. So, long story short, Texas, being a vast border state, is doing everything it can to put an end to this, but the federal government is trying to stop Texas from doing its part in protecting its own citizens, and in turn the citizens of the United States. Yes, the Supreme Court just made an idiotic ruling on razor wire fencing, but that's not as relevant to our conversation today. In September, I explained this administration's position on immigration, that it's buried deep within the academic study of critical theory, specifically Latino critical theory, or Lat Crid. Just go back and watch or listen to that episode. It's episode 7, which is a full treatise on replacement theory. Yes, regardless of Democrat projection and media slandering, replacement theory is a very real thing. And no, it wasn't concocted by conservatives who oppose illegal immigration. In fact, it perfectly explains the Biden administration's lax approach to border security, which is unfortunately being exploited by criminals and enemies around the world, not just from Central America. So please, go back and listen to or watch that episode to understand the scholarship behind this theory, which is unfolding before our eyes. But let's continue with Texas. Governor Abbott and the state of Texas are defying the orders of the federal government. The Texas Tribune writes this: the Biden administration has repeatedly cut wire that Texas installed to stop illegal crossings, opening the floodgates to illegal immigrants. The absence of razor wire and other deterrence strategies encourages migrants to make unsafe and illegal crossings between ports of entry. While making the job of Texas National Guard soldiers and DPS troopers more dangerous and difficult, this case is ongoing, and Governor Abbott will continue fighting to defend Texas's property and its constitutional authority to secure the border. Since 2021, Abbott's Operation Lone Star initiative has created tension between the state and federal government. Under the operation, Abbott has deployed state troopers across the 1,200-mile Texas-Mexico border, ordered state police to arrest migrants who are suspected of trespassing, spent $11 million to install 70,000 rolls of concertina wire along the Rio Grande, and spent $1.5 billion on about a dozen miles of border walls. Now here's where this situation gets a little sticky. The feds apparently cut through parts of this wire to assist migrants. Okay? The Tribune says, as migrants have attempted to get through the wire, Border Patrol has cut through parts of the barrier to assist injured people. Attorney General Ken Paxton filed a lawsuit against DHS claiming federal agents had illegally destroyed state property. Now this right here, this is specifically what the Supreme Court got involved in, with the majority of justices simply claiming that the feds have the freedom or the constitutional right to do what they see fit to do with the border, the fence, the boundary. They weren't saying that Texas could not install barriers or wires or walls, only that Texas couldn't, stop the feds or sue the feds for cutting through it. Therefore, the surface level argument between the federal government and the state of Texas is saying, we're going to take whatever measures necessary to defend Texans and their property, and by extension, U.S. citizens, while the federal position is, if someone's trying to get into the country, we're going to help them, period. So Texas's Attorney General, Ken Paxton, said, the Supreme Court's temporary order allows Biden to continue his illegal effort to aid the foreign invasion of America. Paxton said in a statement, the destruction of Texas's border barriers will not help enforce the law or keep American citizens safe. This fight is not over, and I look forward to defending our state's sovereignty. And this is where we've come to a critical impasse. One side clearly recognizes we have a serious problem with illegal border crossing, as in thousands per day. That's millions of unknowns within the country in just a few short years, which is precisely the concern of the congressional letter from Kevin Brock and Chris Swecker. The other side simply has zero problem with everybody and anybody coming in whenever and however they want. They don't care about the national security risks. They don't care about the millions of moochers intentionally remaining as unknown so as to exploit the American systems for wealth. They don't care about law and order. They don't care about the human trafficking. They don't care about the drug trafficking. They don't care about the massive strain on American resources. They don't care about anything except their false humanitarianism and their virtue signaling. That's what they care about. And Congress is unwilling to act. All of this is totally an impeachable offense. And I'm not talking about Mayorkas. That's a waste of time. I'm talking about Joseph Robinette Biden. Do the Republicans and the moderate Democrats in Congress have the intestinal fortitude to remove the president for giving aid and comfort to our enemies, potentially levying war against our states, facilitating an endless barrage of crimes and misdemeanors against these United States, especially the border states? And, isn't Kamala Harris responsible for immigration? Let's throw her out while we're at it, because here's how the global chips are falling. All right? Just keep track of this. Biden is guilty for practically all of the global destabilization, including the Middle East conflict, which he's about to further irritate with a reported response to Iran's recent attack on American troops. Now, connect the dots here. He has simultaneously advertised to the world our vulnerable southern border, meaning that if and when Iran wishes an assault on American soil, let's say, there's nothing stopping them. These are the pots and pans Kevin Brock and Chris Swecker are clanging. This is the alarm that Texas is sounding. And this is what we, the free, are speaking up about. One of the best ways you can help our show, other than by sharing the content, is by picking up some We the Free merch at wethefreeshow.com. You can be the salt and light you are meant to be by wearing the Salt and Light shirt, or by sipping your coffee from the Salt and Light mug, or you can sport the God Bless America shirt, and of course, the classic We the Free crest tee. We've even got stickers and a Smells Like Freedom candle. That's right. So check out our new merch at wethefreeshow.com.